joining. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Jewelers Going Digital survey discussion with industry leaders. We're really excited to be here today. My name is Dustin Sitar, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Operations at BriteCo. I help jewelers get set up with BriteCo's leading appraisal software, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I'm excited to introduce some of our experts that we have here today. We have Alex Fetanat, founder and CEO of GemFind, the jewelry industry's premier digital marketing and technology company. Since 1999, GemFind has sought to provide the jewelry industry with an online presence and more advanced marketing tools. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We have Trace Shelton, editor-in-chief of Instore, a business magazine for North American jewelry retailers that has received recognition from the Jesse H. Neal Awards, Folio, and the Trade Association Business Publications International. He's been editor-in-chief since 2016, but first began connecting with independent retail jewelers in 1998. Welcome, Trace.
Thanks, Dustin, and happy to be here.
And we have Sean Lemire, General Director of Polygon, a secure B2B trading platform for gem and jewelry professionals. Sean has been in the industry since 2009 and is known by clients and industry members as Polygon Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Dustin. Happy to be here.
And then finally, we have Rachel Akmakjian, Director of Jeweler Relations at BriteCo. BriteCo offers leading free appraisal software for jewelers. She has more than 8 years experience in jewelry marketing, retail, diamond wholesale, and managing her own custom jewelry company. She's on track to receive her graduate gemology certificate by the end of this year. Welcome, Rachel.
And thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
So we're going to begin today with a presentation, short presentation by Rachel on the survey, then follow that up with some prepared questions. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A. You'll see in the bottom section of your screen both a Q&A tab and a chat tab. Please put all your questions in the Q&A tab. That'll make it a lot easier for us to sort through them and be prepared to ask them to our panelists at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel for the presentation.
Sounds good, and we'll go ahead and get that shared right now. Perfect. So thank you, Dustin. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. We'd like to extend a big welcome to everybody who's here for the first time, and a really big welcome back to everyone who joined us on last year's or the year's prior webinar. We're excited to be here and share what the major findings were of this report for the 2022 Jewelers Going Digital report. I'm excited to be a part of this panel with other industry experts extremely knowledgeable in their field, and just here to help you guys and answer any questions you have as the whole industry, as we start to see everyone kind of move into that digital space here. As Dustin said, if at any point through the presentation or in the discussion afterwards, should you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and add that to the chat, and we will do our very best to get to all of them. So we'll hop right in. So to give you guys a little bit of background, especially the people who are new and joining us today, the first survey that was sent out in 2020 was really to kind of understand how jewelers had to adapt and cope and change with the challenges that COVID-19 had presented the industry. Partnered with that, it was also ways in which jewelers were using and utilizing digital technology to aid them through that unprecedented time. This time around, with the Jewelers Going Digital report, it wasn't so COVID focused. We're kind of, past that wave. It was more so, what digital advancements, what digital technologies have jewelers, in a way, who were sort of forced to move into this space with COVID. What's stayed? What are people using now? And how are jewelers kind of making that jump and that transition over to adding digital technologies to the operational side of their business, as well as the digital and the marketing and advertising side of their business as well. So 300 respondents said responded to the survey, and about 125 of those were retail jewelers. And we really just wanted to see how your marketing techniques and tactics had changed over the past year. And then, of course, we published the report in July of 2022. So hopping right into what I think is an extremely important number, and I hope that you join me in that thought, 87% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that digital technology is important for their retail jewelry business. That's a huge number. I mean, that's a majority if I've ever seen one. To pair that with this next slide, here's another pretty large number. 62%, that's nearly 2/3 of retailers, responded and said that digital technology is an investment they have to make to stay competitive. 87% and 62%, you guys, that's huge. I mean, those numbers alone should tell you that, you know, moving into the digital space is not only the new reality, but it's also here to stay. Something that was interesting about, you know, having such high numbers, only 48%, so less than half of respondents, said that they were confident that their employees were well versed enough with their digital technologies, and felt like they had the training to implement them. And less than 1/3 of jewelers were actually spending money on training their employees and making sure that they were equipped to, you know, as these digital technologies are being implemented, that their staff was trained to use them. You know, those numbers should increase. Having your sales team, your whole team on board with these switches will help the implementation and help ease the entire process into this new stage of the industry that we are headed into. So naturally, with digital technologies becoming more of an integral part of our industry, we start to see it taking up more resources. So 55% said that their staff time increased on using digital technologies, and 50% said that the money that they spent on digital technologies also increased in the year of 2022. There is about 13% spending more money on websites and e-commerce and a social media presence as well. This is a fun little tidbit here, was that only a fraction, about 1/10 of jewelers reported spending less on digital technology. So the trend is moving towards it, and very few are choosing not to. So why are we asking and encouraging you guys to spend money and time on implementing digital technologies? It is the way of the future, and it's not just for our industry. I mean, we are seeing this across industries, and I think I speak for everyone on this panel when I say we want you all to adapt and shift so that no one gets left behind, and we are all here to help you do that. But let's get into some numbers. 30% of retailers indicate that digital technology has helped boost their sales. And that's essentially what we want to see, and what we're trying to get across is investing time and investing money is going to help increase your revenue. And so essentially we're asking you to spend time and spend money to make money. So to get a little more specifically into what, you know, advertising and digital channels people are using, we wanted to show you, not just tell you to get into a digital space, but kind of explain what jewelers have been using and what they have found successful over the past couple years as well. So 36% of jewelers increased their advertising budgets in the last year. Something that stood out to me here is that just under 20% of jewelers don't advertise. That's pretty shocking to me, especially being, you know, the year 2022. Of course, there are jewelers all over the country and have their different reasons. I can understand the jeweler in the rural area, only jeweler in the area. Your word of mouth business is excellent, but just think about how much unused potential there is that you could go in and grasp if more people knew where you were and knew how to find you. And that's ultimately what we see is the consumer today, the millennial consumer, they want to buy from people that they know and that they're comfortable with. And the more you can put yourself in front of them, the more likely they are to come to you and to feel comfortable coming to you as well. So which digital marketing tactics are being used? Email still remains in the lead. But what's curious from this slide is that social media advertising and SEO tactics have decreased over the past year as compared to 2020. This could be for a multitude of reasons. One of the speculations, or what's likely, is that as a lot of the COVID restrictions started to lift and more people could come into stores, there wasn't as much need to, social media and websites at one point during COVID served as our only way to connect and contact our customers. Now with all of these restrictions being lifted, more people are coming into the store. And so that's essentially why we maybe see those decreases there. So which advertising channel is going to give you the best return on your investment? Which one gives you the most money back? Right now, and kind of by a long shot, we're really seeing social media be the best return, or the highest return on your investment. This is organic and paid, and then email advertising also is up there as well. You'll notice at the bottom here, TV and print are definitely not as high of a return anymore. I think that used to be, a while back how people would do it, but social media just allows you to reach so many more people in a fun way as well. And then what we also see is that page search has also decreased since the previous year. This can be attributed to many things, but one of the things is the higher price and the cost per click by publishers. But that's something that we're seeing affecting every industry. So it's not just us. Favorite social media platforms to use. Facebook and Instagram are definitely the ones that are used most often, with Facebook still in the lead. Everything else there was nothing too significant. They kind of stayed the same, or they slightly increased or decreased, except for TikTok, sort of this new guy coming into the industry. We saw TikTok grow significantly as a social media platform used. And as more and more people become familiar with it, I expect that to grow, to see that grow as a platform used more often as well. Jewelers have started to use videos in their marketing more often. Instagram increased their video marketing, or the amount of videos on Instagram increased by 10%. This could be attributed to the introduction of Reels on Instagram. And, I think that jewelers have learned that their customers enjoy learning from them and watching on display the jewelry that they have. And of course, we all know jewelry is way more sparkly when it's moving versus in a snapshot. So video has become a very important part to people advertising and marketing their companies. So what's important to know is that digital technology is not only reserved for the marketing and advertising space. There are digital technologies that play a big role in the day-to-day operations of your business. So beyond your regular suppliers, what are the B2B platforms that people are using to source? Here are our two giants. Nearly half of jewelers are still sourcing from Polygon and RapNet. They appear to be the ones used most often. I mean, they're a one-stop shop for everything you would need. You see everything right up in front of you. And everyone else is kind of trickling behind. Now, we do see 52% of people not using these sources and sticking to their normal vendors that they have, they'll call or email. That number was a bit shocking to me, just because I mean, companies like Polygon make it so easy to just go in and do a search, type in, use the filters, and kind of see what's out there from a multitude of people, and get the best price and best stone or piece for your client. So what digital solutions have people been using to manage their online inventory? We still see that 39% are relying on their existing inventory management systems. These are companies like The Edge and other point of sale programs that people have. And then we see 13 and 10% of business, respectively, businesses are using their e-commerce platform inventory management system, and then a separate standalone inventory management system. Another part of jewelry business is, of course, appraisals. And we thought it was interesting to look into what primary methods are people using to conduct their appraisals. Now, 34% of jewelers consider appraisals to be an important source of income, and 66% offer a free appraisal with a purchase. So those are two pretty big numbers where appraisals are a big part of your business. What we're seeing is that more and more jewelers are moving to digital technologies for appraisals. Appraisals can be a bit tedious, and so they're moving to cloud-based softwares, about 25%, systems that make it very easy to plug things in and appraise. 24% use a downloaded software. These are softwares that are customized, they might even be Word documents that have just been, formatted, let's say, to handle your appraisals. And 29% of jewelers are still using MS Word templates. That was a shocking number to me, not just, of course, yes, I do work at BriteCo, but Word, having an appraisal on Word document, it's how I used to do my appraisals, and it was time consuming. And so seeing more people switch into that cloud-based direction is definitely something we're happy to see. So this is now getting into kind of what we learned from these reports. Were jewelers that have and tend to report higher sales. We wanted to know what tools they harness, what things that they do, and the traits that they have in common. We felt that would be really important to share with you guys, to see, we can all learn from each other, and what are people who are successful in our industry doing, and then how can we kind of follow suit and learn from them. So some of the key characteristics of jewelers with higher sales are increased spending and adoption of digital marketing and operation technologies. So they're using digital technologies to help market their business on different platforms, and they're also incorporating digital technologies into a lot of the day-to-day functions that they used to do manually. Increased staff time and money is spent on using them, as well as into the next bullet, increased spending on training. So they're not just implementing their softwares, they're making sure that they are building a concise and cohesive team within their company to handle this switch, to move forward, and so that everyone is well versed in this new sort of digital age that we are moving into. They've all increased their store's advertising budget. The more and more that you can get your name in front of your buyer, the better. And there's just not enough that you can do to make that happen. And then increase spending on stores, website, and social media and e-commerce. I mean, that is huge. So many consumers, and especially the millennial consumers, I mean, your website is the very first thing that they're going to go to, and they want to make sure that it looks, pristine, and it ultimately gives your business, a level of legitimacy in the consumer's mind. So our digital technology recommendations is invest sooner rather than later. You guys, the time is now, and we don't want to see you fall behind. Invest in your people as well. Taking the time to train your employees, to train your staff, that's going to be just as beneficial. Seek outside help when needed. Now, as much as we all like to say that we know everything and anything, that's not always the case. There are people and companies that kind of did all of the work for you, and a few of them are on this panel here. They created systems to make your life easier. So my whole thing is to always outsource your weakness. You can't be everything to everyone. So partner with people who are experts in the areas that you lack. And then constantly test and evaluate those systems. Just because one thing worked for you for a while doesn't mean that it's where you should stay or it can't be improved on whatsoever. Being able to adjust all the time is going to lead you to the most success. And more recommendations. So start budgeting for the integration of digital technologies into your store. And those stores that hold back and refuse to kind of join this wave, they're going to be less and less competitive, and they're going to eventually fall further behind. And that's not what we want to see. We want to move on this new wave all together. So if you haven't read the report, we highly encourage that you do. We kind of touched on the main points, but there is so much more information within the report. So please go and download it. It's free to download at www.jewelersgoingdigital.org. And if you enjoyed this and felt like you learned something, what we would encourage you is to look out for the report and the survey next year. We would love for you to spread the word, for you to take the report, for your friends to take the report, because essentially the more people that we have filling out the survey, the more in depth and the more beneficial the results that we have are going to come out of it, and eventually we can all learn and grow from each other. So thank you very much for sitting through this presentation. What I'm going to do now is toss the baton back to Dustin here.
Thank you so much, Rachel. The baton will only sit briefly with me. Appreciate that presentation. There's some great insights. Encourage anybody who has any questions that's emerged, or as our panelists are answering some questions, to put the questions again into the Q&A. Now, Rachel, now that you've had a breath, I'm going to start with you, but I would love to hear from everybody on the panel. If you had to boil what you heard there down to one thing that jumped out at you, what would it be? And let's start right back with you, Rachel.
So my one key takeaway was how many jewelers recognized that moving into that digital space is the way of the future, is a necessary measure for them to remain competitive. And yet we still see so many jewelers yet to take the plunge. Now, I know that it is it is overwhelming. It is, I mean, it's a scary thing. It's brand new, but there are companies and people who have done it before, and companies who are there ready to assist you and help you make that tradition and make it as painless as possible, because this is, you know, we've all agreed this is the way that it's moving. So now let's all get on board and start, you know, one step at a time, make a list of the things and start working towards adding more digital technology into every facet of your company.
Let's go to Alex.
Yeah, thank you for that, Justin. Thank you, Rachel, for that presentation. That was awesome. Very informative. Like to see those numbers. And I'd like to see the numbers of jewelers that are not doing anything really increase. Same thing kind of happened back in 2009, 2010. Unfortunately, this industry as a whole, based on my 20+ years experience, they're kind of reactive. They're not proactive. So what happened was in 08, 09, same thing, we went through recession. And a lot of the jewelers decided, okay, website is important. Obviously, digital marketing, to the extent that it is available today, was at its infancy. Just PPC, there were no social, very little social, but and search engine optimization. But what COVID did, it was a wake-up call basically for a lot of the retailers that are, again, kind of waiting for something to happen in order for them to take some actions. So I like the numbers. I like the numbers that I see, that, you know, over 45, 50% of them are going in that direction of digitalization. But again, I'm kind of concerned about the 20, 30% that are not really doing anything. And it's not a sudden death, but I think if they don't make that change, if they have the fear of technology and the fear of change, and if that continues on, it's a gradual death, unfortunately. So, like you said, we want the industry to thrive. We want the industry to grow. We don't want to lose retailers. It's not going to help any of us, but definitely the ones that are thinking about staying in business for a long term and they have transition plans, they need to take this very seriously.
That's great. Let's pass it to Trace.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a very interesting survey. Thanks for that report, Rachel. I think what stands out to me most is that, as Alex said, retailers are starting to invest in digital technology. I think it's critical because, especially if you want to continue to stay in business and fight against the giants, you know, of the industry, the people that have a lot of money and they have the staff and the time to invest in innovative technologies. It's important for independent retailers to continue to try to stay on that cutting edge as well. And the nice thing about being an independent owner is that you can turn on a dime and you can act very quickly, whereas the big companies of the industry are going to take longer. So that's your advantage, and you should use it. The result that stood out to me most, this is kind of it was maybe more of a niche item, but it stood out to me because of some things that I learned over the summer about some technologies that are becoming available. So one of the results was that 33% don't have an inventory management system for online sales, which I was surprised to see that. And I'm not sure if maybe those 33% don't offer e-commerce or what the situation is with that number. But I don't know how they're managing their inventory. 39% are using a local system in the store, which is sort of like the best technology that we've had up to this point. But cloud-based inventory management platforms are now coming available. I think I would have to believe that even, you know, some of the major, you know, what we now would call a local system are moving towards this cloud-based inventory management. And the nice thing about the cloud-based software is that it'll sync your online inventory and your store-based inventory in real time. So when something is sold online, it immediately becomes unavailable in the store, or vice versa. And so, and the fact that you can track, your inventory from wherever you are in the world. You don't have to be in your store to see it, or on a laptop or anything. You can just look on your mobile phone and see what's going on in your store. So that's a technology that I think a lot of people are maybe not aware of, and something that I think a lot of retailers should look into.
That's great. Go ahead,
If I
Alex.
may add to that, Trace, so with Edge, we have a partnership with Edge, and I noticed that almost 40% of the people that are using Edge. So with Edge, they do, even though it's a local base, but they do, and we have that technology where it's, we can basically push their products that they have in the store directly to a website, mainly Shopify, and then vice versa. If they sell an item, it'll automatically marks it as sold in the Edge system, just to kind of clear that up. But yes, I do agree with you. Definitely the cloud base is the way to go, and a lot of those local companies are going in that direction.
Great. And Sean, what was the one thing that jumped out at you?
Well, similar to Rachel, I thought, other than the fact that around 60% of jewelers said that they really need to invest more in digital tech to remain competitive, I did find it interesting that the stores that were reporting higher sales figures were the same ones that had increased adoption of digital tech in some shape or form. They had also increased training for their staff, so definitely getting salespeople and other staff members involved with social strategy and other. As well as increased online digital spend. So making investments in website, SEO, improving their organic reach. There seems to be a direct correlation between the retailers who are embracing and using these digital tools are the same ones who are seeing better results. But I also agree with Alex and Trace as well.
That's great. And I think one of the things that I heard you guys all talk about there was the competition. And so, the title of our Jewelers Going Digital 2022 report is Digital or Die. Could each of you sort of dive in to the urgency and maybe at the, some jewelers that feel at a crossroads, like of whether they need to expand their digital footprint into e-commerce and more online activity, and what level of urgency there is for them to survive? And we'll start with Alex there.
Sure, Dustin. So I believe there's 3 groups of jewelers within the industry. Based on Instore survey, I think over 50% of them are over 60 years old, right? So if they don't have a transition plan, if they don't have any kids that will take over, or if they don't have any intentions, maybe they're not feeling the need to grow their business, invest in technology, spend money in digital marketing. So that's one group. There's one group in the middle that don't know what to do. They're, again, reactive. They have hesitation. They have that fear of change. And then there's another third group that understand and realize digital marketing is important. They want to grow. They want to really expand. And they are the ones that are going to take market share from the first and the second group. So in every city, and we work with a lot of great retailers around the country, we see that. And we see what the pain point is for a lot of these smaller jewelers, because again, they just don't get it and they're not investing in technology, or they don't realize this is where they need to be. And we can see that our clients that are aggressive, they're spending the money, they're definitely, sales have increased over the years, and they continue to grow. So again, if they don't really realize that they need to make that change, it's a gradual death.
That's great. Trace, did you have anything you kind of wanted to add in on that piece?
Yeah, I mean, Alex said it, and I think that, if there's a crossroads for retailers to get into digital technology or start to decline, in my opinion, that crossroads was a few years ago. Like, if you're not already investing in digital technology, you're behind. And, we're probably preaching to the choir here. I mean, if someone's on this webinar, obviously they're interested in jewelry, digital technology and how it relates to jewelry. But I think that the thing to think about beyond what your competition is doing is also, what your customers want. And, digital technology is a way for you to provide better service to your customers. That's the bottom line. So if you're not trying to stay on top of the latest developments, if you're not, investing time and resources into digital technology, then you're shortchanging your customers. And I know that no one wants to do that. So that's sort of the other side of that digital tech coin.
And I think that's a really good point. The companies that have adopted digital technologies on the operational side of their business, it removes a lot of the manual work that they were doing, and sort of these systems help follow up with the customers and create a better overall experience for your clients as well. But even when it comes to new people finding you, I mean, as a millennial consumer, and my friends would maybe say a millennial over consumer, the website is the very first place that I go to, and I go to your reviews and I see what other people are saying about you. And if there's, maybe a 15-second time frame where you have to win my business or not. And I think that a lot of consumers operate in that same way, and they want to go somewhere where they know they're going to be taken care of. And all of these new technologies and services and programs help you do that.
If I can just add one thing to that, I would say, beyond what the customer wants, where is the customer shopping? And I think today, as Rachel touched on, the end consumer is shopping from the comfort of their home on their smartphone. They're, browsing various social media sites. They're educating themselves. They're getting a very good idea of what they want before they walk into stores. So, being in front of that audience is very important, whether that be an optimized website that sells e-commerce or just displays what products, what services, what brands that you carry. And like Rachel said, you have sometimes a very short window to impress the customer and win their business. So if you're not where they're shopping, then you're not in the race at all.
Those are some great call outs. And I think it gives us a good opportunity to sort of pivot to some specific competition. Blue Nile and Brilliant Earth have been, e-commerce, big retailers, and they're actually opening up like brick and mortar showrooms. Are these considered, do you guys consider these a major threat to the independent retail jewelers? And I'd love maybe, Sean, for you to jump in there with the start of an answer to that.
Sure. I don't believe so. I think these big e-tailers are going brick and mortar because people still prefer to make these larger luxury item purchases in person. And with all the virtual inventory and custom jewelry builder solutions that are available, I mean, we offer some, GemFind offers some. I know Stuller has their counter sketch. I mean, there's a lot of solutions that are out there to help small to medium-sized family-owned businesses remain competitive on price, but they still need to sell themselves over these big chains and these e-tailers that are going brick and mortar on why the customer should buy from them. I think on my end, I always prefer to shop local and to, support local. I think most people are the same, but you do need to compete on price. And, another thing that I found shocking from the report was that 50-some-odd% of retailers don't use any kind of a B2B platform. And not that I represent a B2B platform, but it definitely makes it much easier to compare pricing. It's an efficiency thing where if you have your customer sitting in front of you, you don't want to tell them, well, I don't have it. Let me make a few calls. Let me call my vendors. I'll try and get back to you within a day or two. You want to be able to pull up the results, find the stone, take a deposit, put the item into production right away. I don't think that Blue Nile or Brilliant Earth, is a major threat to these independent retailers, but the retailers definitely need to, like we said earlier, get in front of their audience and present, a reason why that the customer should buy from them.
Anything there, Alex? Any thoughts there on what's going on there?
Well, obviously they're taking some market share. Are they a threat to independent retailers? If the retailer, so what I talked about, actually, there was a presentation I remember back in 2007 at JCK. And what I said back then and I say today, the hybrid model is the way to go. If somebody wants to be successful in business, especially with jewelry, like Sean said, they like to come into the store, they want to feel it, they want to touch it, they want to wear it, and they want to buy it. But then that the experience starts from online. So what Blue Nile and Brilliant Earth did, they saw that they're losing customers that they're talking to, but they're not able to provide that experience with Instore. What's also really interesting, opening up a location, opening up a retail store is expensive for Blue Nile and Brilliant Earth, with the inventory, with the overhead, with the staff. The retailers already have all of that. The retailers already have the inventory, they have the location, they already have their overhead. So having that online presence costs them a lot less to be able to compete with the Blue Niles of the world. So what I'm really concerned about now that Signet bought Blue Nile is, and I don't know if they're going to go in that direction or not, but they kind of will be able to, if they go in that direction, will be able to basically provide that online and in-store experience with their over 3,000 stores across the US. So how independent retailers can really differentiate themselves, obviously, is with the service that they provide, the reputation, the customer experience, connecting with their customers, bringing back their existing customers to the store. So we'll see how that turns out with Blue Nile and Signet, but they're definitely taking some market share, but it's not that significant on the macro level.
Anybody else have any thoughts there that they wanted to chime in on?
I mean, I would add that, Brilliant Earth, Blue Nile, their advantage is their online capability, their convenience, the price that they can offer. Them trying to come into independent retailers and brick and mortar space, that puts them at a disadvantage. So, your advantage, if you're an independent retailer, is your local presence. And so, the way that you combat one of these e-tailers, setting up shop in your town is just to make sure that you are present in your community. And I know we're talking about digital tech here, but that's boots on the ground, elbow grease, getting out there, getting involved with your chamber, getting involved with other local business owners, and just making sure that everyone knows that you're in the community and you're an integral part of it, unlike these big businesses coming in.
I mean, I think that's extremely important, especially for the jewelry industry. I mean, we've seen the jewelry industry is such a personal industry. I mean, you'll see generations of jewelers who help generations of customers, and they come for the engagement ring and then they return for the wedding band and anniversary presents, and you get to get these customers and maintain them for their lifetime and for the lifetime of your business as well. And the one thing that the Blue Niles and the Brilliant Earths couldn't do is they couldn't create those personal relationships that so many jewelers have almost relied on for that return and referral business. And I think it's one of the reasons that our industry is so unique and so special. So you shouldn't be intimidated. You should be inspired that they're now moving to a sort of brick and mortar, locations, because they've understood that there's a big element of the business that they're not able to grasp, but you're already grasping it. So if you increase your online presence, if you increase the digital technologies that you are incorporating into your store, I mean, you're right up there with them, but you have that huge emotional and personal presence that you've created for years, sometimes generations, that they don't have.
Those are all great answers. And what I kind of, to recap, heard there was Sean talked about, how you could stay on parity with pricing by using technology. And then that you guys all talked about, there's a lot of advantages that these independent retail jewelers have over these big e-commerce sites. Fantastic. I'd like to sort of pivot to, something that Alex mentioned earlier and sort of direct this at Trace. The most recent In-Store Magazine big survey showed that most retail jewelers are aging, with 50% 60 years or older. Do you see this as like an opportunity for a new generation of retail jewelers, or how do you sort of perceive this sort of aging demographic?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic in the industry right now. And I think, we have a lot of store owners who are getting to retirement age and then not having any options ready for them because no one's there to buy their business. And that's why we've seen contraction over the last 15 years in the industry, even though the amount of dollars in the industry has either been unchanged or has increased in that amount of time. So it certainly does present an opportunity if those people are out there, if those young people are out there and ready to take that on. I would say if you're an older owner and you're within 10, 15 years of retirement, now's the time to start cultivating that younger manager with potential who might want to take over from you. You can hand them responsibility increasingly over time, and then perhaps they'll buy the business when they're ready. And to me, young people understand the advantages of digital tech. They've grown up with it, and they're the right people to be leading the independent jewelry retail model into the future.
Great. And anybody else have any thoughts on that? I know, Alex, you alluded to some thoughts earlier about the aging demographic.
Well, definitely, like Trey said, the opportunity is there. And I don't think personally that the new generation will have those kind of, if they are opening up a store, if they're taking over, I think the footprint of the store is going to be a lot smaller, more of a virtual inventory, less in-house inventory, basically more focused on the digital marketing, because like Trey said, they get it, they understand it, they use it every day. So I think that next generation, I think, the entire business, I think the business model is going to be a little bit different. That's what I think. And it's going to be more focused towards their digital presence and obviously e-commerce versus, and they would probably have the store kind of like Luna, like a pop-up shop, smaller footprint with less inventory.
Thank you, Alex. Checking on the time here, we're going to go with 2 more questions for our panelists before pivoting to some Q&A. So again, feel free to drop your questions in there. Let's start with you, Sean. Where do you see technology continuing to grow and change the most within the jewelry space?
That's a good question. I'd have to say virtual inventory and custom that we've talked about a little bit already. Today, everybody wants something that they saw on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. As a jeweler, you need to be able to capture that sale, even though you don't have what the customer is looking for in stock. So have a system, make it easy, whether that system is a PowerPoint, a PDF, a software solution that you've bought into or created. Walk your customer through it while educating them, selling them on why they should buy from you. And at the end of the pitch, you should have addressed the customer's questions, any concerns they have, and be able to quote them on a price, take a deposit, and put the item into production. So in terms of areas of technology that will likely continue to grow, I'd say virtual inventory and custom is what I would go with.
Anybody else have anything there, or we'll move on to our last question?
I'd just like to add, I think virtual try-on, ability for customers to connect with the retailers quicker, easier, faster. I think that's, augmented reality, virtual reality, metaverse, obviously through Meta, Facebook. That's definitely going to be the wave of the future. And something that we're going to be launching, hopefully for the Q4, is direct connection with the retailers through video based on the product. So if somebody clicks on a product on the website, they'll be able to connect with the retailer through a video chat, and then the retailer would actually be able to give that presentation in real time to that end customer, and then be able to purchase right online through that web chat. So I think, those connectivities definitely going to help and enhance that experience for the customers in terms of technology.
Very cool.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. showroom tech is an area that I think a lot of people don't think about. When we think about digital tech, we're thinking about online often, but we have our America's Coolest Store issue coming out next month. And one of the winners uses iPads to control the lighting in their showcases to show off certain pieces more effectively. And they allow their employees to access showcases with an iPad. So, you know, there's cool technology that you can use in your showroom, RFID tags that can allow you to track each piece of jewelry down to its location, keeping up with inventory. There's new security tech that can screen customers without them having to remove phones, watches, belts. They just walk through this system, and it makes sure that that they're not coming in with something they shouldn't. And then, as Sean mentioned, virtual inventory, again, access with that with an iPad. I mean, an iPad is almost like going to be standard procedure, a must-have item for your employees in the store. So, that's something that I think, when we talk about store owners needing to train their employees, needing to invest more in tech, let's not forget that can apply to your showroom as well. And if your employees are up to snuff on this tech, then that is not only going to help you to close more sales, but it's going to make your customer service that much better.
Those are some great pieces of advice there. So I'd like to, go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just saying good points, Trace.
I'd like to wrap up with just one final question for the group. We'll go around this virtual room here and answer it one by one. If you could boil down some of the thoughts from here and what you guys have been talking about, if you could give one piece of advice to jewelers, what would it be? And let's start with you, Rachel.
So I know we've thrown a lot at you from many different aspects, but if I had to give one piece of advice, it's that the jewelry industry is probably one of the most traditional industries I've ever come across. Everyone has been doing things the way they've been doing it for a very long time. If you can make a list of the next steps that you need to take to switch into more of a digital space, understand that there are so many companies, this panel here, that can help you do that. Everything that you're doing on the operational side, that you're doing manually, there is a service or a product that you can implement that can help you on that end of it. And then, of course, anything you can do to get your name out there, to get your company, your presence known, and that's, of course, on the advertising and marketing side. Definitely implement those. And again, there are people ready to help you through the entire process.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Let's go to you, Trace.
Yeah, my advice is don't get complacent. I know we're again kind of preaching to the choir here, because if you're on this webinar, you're probably not complacent, but think about it a little more deeply. Stay on top of developments, not only in the jewelry sector, but across retail in general. Some of the most successful retailers right now are pulling ideas from other retail and service sectors. Again, in our new issue coming out next month, our America's Coolest Stores, you'll see examples of jewelry retailers pulling concepts from restaurants, from museums, from piercing and body art studios. So there are a lot of other sectors that you can look at and say, hey, how could I take that concept and make it work in my store? And then additionally, I would say stay on top of what's happening in social media and digital marketing, because that's the most affordable and most targeted marketing available to you. And as an independent retailer, that gives you an advantage, because you don't have the dollars that these big companies have, but you can still make a big splash using social media and digital marketing.
Sean?
Great points, Trace. So in one of the pragmatic business marketing courses I took last year, they stressed a lot about making data-driven decisions. And basically, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So when you launch any campaign, the most important thing is tracking, reviewing results, and then focusing on what's working, and try and keep feelings and emotions out of it. And I think that would be my number one piece of advice is try and always make data-driven decisions.
And Alex?
And that's the beauty, just back at you, Sean, just the beauty of digital marketing, obviously, because everything is trackable, right? Everything is in black and white. And the other thing that I want to point out is when you're really looking at your customer base and your business, the lifetime value of your customers are in the thousands, right? Because if you initially make a sale, and if you can bring them back to your store, you can make a lot of money over the lifetime of your clients. So when you take a look at digital marketing compared to traditional marketing, the cost is significantly less and it's much more measurable. If it costs you $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 to advertise on Google, for example, if you can in turn bring in 5 new clients, 10 new clients, the cost of acquisition for your customers are really insignificant. So a lot of the jewelers don't realize that with a little bit of an advertising, they can make a huge impact, and you have to take baby steps. It's not just going on and spending, tens of thousands of dollars every month. It should not be like that. Take baby steps. Make sure you have a great online presence, because you don't want to advertise your business if you don't have good websites, if you don't have, good images on your site. But once those are in place, invest in digital marketing, because again, like Sean said, it's all trackable. Search engine optimization is important. The brand awareness is important. Your reviews are important. Just see what your competitors' reviews are online and try to exceed the number and try to be better in terms of scores, because like Rachel said, that's what we look at as a consumer when we try to do business with the service provider. That's my mindset.
Those are some great final pieces of advice. Everyone, thank you so much for doing those questions. We'll now pivot to some questions from the audience, which I appreciate people jumping in there. And one is sort of around cost. So people are saying that their store is at peak performance, that their digital needs need to be outsourced, and they're having trouble estimating like how expensive some of these things are, and how they should be judging what cost factors that they should be looking at. How would you recommend people go about evaluating cost for some of these systems that might be new, can occasionally be overwhelming? Any thoughts there? Maybe start with you, Alex. You're still on mute there, Alex.
Sorry about that. Is that the cost of the web presence or the cost of advertising you're talking about?
It says that their digital needs need to be outsourced. And when they get quotes on outsourcing those digital needs, I don't know whether it's like a social media company or whether it's website development, it just feels expensive to them. How would you recommend people think about justifying those costs and evaluating whether they need to make that investment?
So again, let's say you spend $10,000 on a website. First of all, my number one recommendation is work with somebody who's in the industry, who understands the industry and the needs, right? Number one. Number two is do not go with a platform-based company that has a basically closed platform. It's proprietary, where you're going to be limited in terms of your growth. So make sure it's an open source, Shopify, WordPress, Magento. And then if you're investing, again, $10,000, let's say, on a website, then you're spending maybe about $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 in marketing. Again, the lifetime value of your customers are a lot. They're significant. They're in thousands. And I can guarantee you within 5 months, you've already made money. You've already made the investment money initially, and you've already made profit. And it's going to enhance your business for a long term, obviously. So to me, it's the best investment you can make at any price.
That's a great way to break it down. Somebody in here said, how well do the new GIA digital appraisals integrate with existing digital commerce platforms? So any thoughts on sort of the new way GIA is doing digital appraisals and any effects it might have on e-commerce or what you're doing in your store?
Is that digital appraisals or is that digital reports?
Reports, I think.
Probably reports.
Can you, sorry,
can you repeat? Yeah, I'm not personally familiar with that because, I mean, GCal has awesome, they have awesome lab reports, for example. They're all 3D, they're digitized, you have the picture, you have the videos. So the more content, obviously, that's available through all these laboratories, obviously it's beneficial to the end consumer because they're hungry for information. They want to research, they want to learn before they even might make the purchase. So the more information we could provide, obviously, it's going to enhance that e-commerce transaction.
Fantastic. We're getting a little low on time, so I want to thank everybody for being here, the panelists and attendees. If your question didn't get answered, everybody here has said they'd be willing to share their email address, and you can email any questions directly to them. So panelists, if you don't mind, let's go around and not only give your email address out, but if you would also type it in the chat, then so the people could reach out to you directly. And let's start with you, Alex, saying it out loud. We're going reverse around the virtual room.
Mine is easy. It's alex@gemfind.com. And I will also put that on the chat here. And the phone number is the phone number is 800-373-4373. And I'll type it here in the chat as well.
Okay, great. Sean?
So my email is simple, Sean, SEAN @polygon.net. And I can always be reached at toll-free 800-221-4435. My direct extension is 3037, and I'll just drop that in the chat as well.
Appreciate that. Trace?
Trace@smartworkmedia.com, and it is in the chat.
Awesome. Rachel?
And mine is going to be not so easy, and I apologize for that. That is due to my Armenian last name. So it is Rachel.Akmakjian. You can find it in the chat. RACHEL.AKM as in Mary, AKJIAN as in Nancy @brite.co. And my phone number, which I'll add to the chat as well, is 312-809-9100, and that's extension 124.
Great. Again, thank you everyone who attended. Thank you experts for presenting. And that'll be the end of our webinar. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
Dustin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye. Bye.